Hello there, and welcome to Sakai Ichimonji's global channel. We're here to talk about sharpening today. I've been here at Ichimonji, a family-run Japanese traditional kitchen knife store in Osaka that has been open since the early 1950s. No matter how good your knife might be, and as you keep using it, it will lose its sharpness over time. This is a natural part of opening and using a good knife. To regain the knife's sharpness and thus its performance, you need to sharpen it. This is especially the case with single-edged knives, which we'll be looking at in this tutorial. This single-edged blade structure is the structure used in traditional Japanese kitchen knives. The blade is flat on one side, with the cutting edge or kireha located completely on the other side. This is so that the ingredient you're cutting doesn't take any needless damage during the cutting process. There's many kinds of traditional kitchen knives, but here's a few common categories of knife you may encounter in Japanese cuisine or the next time you go to a Japanese restaurant. Deba knives specialize in filleting a fish and breaking it down. Yanagiba knives are designed for slicing sashimi, and an Usuba knife is best for cutting and peeling vegetables. In order to keep these knives performing well, they need specialized sharpening methods which are different from double-edged knives, which are the knives you'll often see used in the home like santoku, gyuto, peti, and nakiri knives. While the Usuba knives here look very similar to nakiri knives, they are quite different. Nakiri will have their cutting edge in the center instead of on one side, which is what makes nakiri knives double-edged knives. Now before we start sharpening, you're going to need a few things. Of course, you'll need the knife you want to sharpen, but you also need a whetstone to sharpen with, a couple of towels, a grip sheet, and some newspaper. You'll probably also want to set up your sharpening area in your kitchen, as water is readily available and absolutely necessary for sharpening. For this tutorial, we'll be using a single vitrified type artificial whetstone that is both a rough stone and a medium stone. We sell these at our shop or online if you need one. This grey, rougher looking side is a 200 grit rough whetstone. This red, slightly smoother looking side is a 1000 grit medium whetstone. Simply put, the smaller that grit number is, the rougher the stone is, and the larger it is, the finer it is. Alright, one more thing. Sharpening can be a bit of a messy experience. You can get sharpening liquid or swarf all around you on walls or on your clothing if you're not careful. I'd say wear maybe some clothing you're not too fussed about getting a bit dirty or stained, or just put an apron on and be careful of your surroundings to make sure nothing too important gets wet. Firstly, fully immerse and soak the whetstone in water for about 5 minutes before you begin sharpening. After 5 minutes, you really shouldn't be seeing many bubbles coming out of the stone anymore, and that's how you know this stone is good to go. Next, set the whetstone on the counter you're going to use, like we've done here. Lay a towel over the grip sheet, and then lay the whetstone on top of that. We'll use the rough side first, so go ahead and place the stone with the 200 grit side facing towards you. Grip the handle with your middle finger, ring finger, and little finger of your right hand. Place your right thumb at the base of the blade and place your index finger on the spine or back of the knife. Lay the entire surface of the slope, which is at the front side of the blade, on the whetstone, and then set your knife at around a 45-degree horizontal angle to the whetstone. Keep in mind this is a rough guide. You don't have to be exactly 45 degrees. Do most importantly what you feel comfortable with. On that note, let's get to sharpening. Grip the knife firmly with your right hand and press down the back of the side ridge with the index and middle finger of your left hand. Move the blade back and forth on the whetstone. You only need to use a little bit of force here. Also, if you find your whetstone drying out as you go, splash some water on it and make sure to keep it wet. After sharpening for a while, if you touch the cutting edge with your fingertip carefully and feel a protrusion kind of like this one, you've created a burr, or kairi in Japanese, which is proof you've sharpened the knife. Did you manage to create a kairi? If so, well done. You've gained a new skill and done your first sharpening. If not, sharpen for a little longer and do it in sections so you can sharpen the whole knife, and that way you'll be able to see a kairi on the entire blade. If you're having trouble getting a kairi on the tip of your blade, try raising your right elbow a little bit and press the blade's tip down gently with your left hand. In turn, if the base of the blade doesn't have a kairi on it, try lowering your elbow a bit instead and press the base a little bit with your left hand. How are we going so far? Hopefully you've got a kairi on the entire of your blade, but if you don't, that's okay. Just check for the parts where it's missing and go back and sharpen those parts a little bit more. Maybe do a final pass on the whole thing at the end just to be safe. Alternatively, you could also try putting some pressure on the thumb of the hand, holding the knife as you go to make that kairi come out. Now, turn over your whetstone so that the medium side, or the side with the 1000 grit number on it, is facing towards you. You need to turn the knife over as well, so that the back, or ura in Japanese, is facing the stone, as we'll be very, very briefly sharpening the back here. In Japanese, we call this step Uraoshi, which literally translates to back pushing. Place the back of the knife on the whetstone and move it back and forth slightly without applying any pressure whatsoever. Don't angle the knife at all in this instance, just lay it flat on the stone. After you've done that Uraoshi on this back side here, the burrs should be removed and you should be good to go. If you can still feel them, just do a little bit more back pushing. As a quick note, when doing this Uraoshi process, if you happen to have a finer stone than the medium stone we mentioned earlier, you should use that instead. The finer you have, the better. Now we're going to be going back to the original side, so turn your knife back over to the side you started with. Place that slanted side of the knife on the whetstone and sharpen it in the same way as before. When your entire blade has been sharpened again, make sure to wash your whetstone so that it doesn't clog up with swarf. After that, turn the knife over to the flat side again and repeat that Uraoshi process with the same very gentle or no force as you used before. Again, never sharpen the backside at an angle, that's going to ruin the knife shape. On that note, your sharpening is technically complete. You can stop here, but with these single edge knives, we really recommend making a Kobazuke or a secondary edge. So we're going to show you how to do that now as well. Now, as we just said, making a secondary edge is really important for single edge knives to increase their durability. When we're talking about knives like Deba knives that can cut through fish bones, this is even more important. This is going to add a lot of chip resistance to the blade, so if you've got the time spare, and maybe even if you don't, definitely worth doing this Kobazuke process. To make this secondary edge, wash your whetstone once again to remove any clogs, turn the knife over to the original side again, then put the sloped part, which is at the front of the knife, towards the stone. Make sure the edge is making contact with the whetstone while the spine is raised just a little to make a very tiny angle. Then just glide the blade on the whetstone without applying any force for a while, like so. Next, we just again push that backside very briefly. Wash the whetstone one more time, turn the knife over to the flat side, lay the back of the knife on the whetstone with no angle at all, and rub it a little without applying any force. There you have it, you've made your secondary edge. We have a much nicer and durable knife for it, and you can apply this to other single beveled knives as well. And again, you really should do so if you have the time. Now that we're done sharpening, wash the knife off and the handle too. Dry it thoroughly with a cloth as well to keep any rust from starting. After this, strop the edge of the blade by running it against newspaper or another similar style of paper, or maybe denim, to remove the burrs. Now the best part of sharpening any knife is the part where you get to test it. Now in our case, the knife is cutting through perfectly, and we hope yours is too, but if it's not, that's okay. Everyone was a beginner at one point, we all were here at one point. Just sharpen the parts again that you need to, and try again. Of course, when you're done, don't forget to clean the kitchen up as well. Make sure to let your whetstone thoroughly dry and don't leave it submerged. Well done on finishing your first sharpening. We have a few other tips and tricks here as well that could help you sharpen just that little bit better. A big one is if you're sharpening a high carbon steel knife, such as a white steel or a blue steel, if you're sharpening for a very long time because of all the water, you might see some rust start to form. You can polish that off with a hard sponge using the abrasive side of the sponge, or some waterproof sandpaper, or something like Miracle Clean or Rust Eraser if you have it available. Also, if you're going to sharpen more frequently, like several times a month, then you can skip that first rough stone step and go straight to the medium stone. This will save you a heap of time in the long run. Look at sharpening kind of like sleep debt, I say. If you leave it for a long time, you have to do it for longer and do more steps. So do it often. You can't skip this step all the time though, that'll make your knife really thick. Just from time to time. If you want to pursue even higher levels of sharpness, you can move on to a finer whetstone like a 3000 grit or a 6000 grit once you've done the medium step. Remember though, this video is just for beginners, so give sharpening a go, and don't forget you can always ask us if you have any questions or want some feedback. You can see some examples of our masters at work by looking at some of the shorts on our channel which show a lot of sharpening off, or try looking at some of the other videos here or on our Japanese channel, Hocho no Koto. Our website also has a bunch more tutorials and maintenance guides, all in English as well. Happy sharpening, and we'll see you in the next video. Okini!